This week on Volusia Magazine, we'll see how you can get prepared for this hurricane season with custom-built safe rooms and storm shutters. We'll see several options available to you in Holly Smith's report, Volusia Here and Now. And finishing out our program, Dave Byron will be interviewing EVAC manager Mike Mellon. We'll find out about the vital service provided by this county-wide ambulance service. That and more coming up on Volusia Magazine. Runners, bikers, and rollerbladers have a new trail to blaze in DeBary with the opening of the first phase of Volusia's Spring to Spring Trail. County officials celebrated the opening recently by riding, rolling, and walking down the trail at Gemini Springs Park. County Council member Ann McFall.
This is a project that began in 1993. It's been a long project, but it's just the beginning and what we could do with trails, not only in Volusia County, but maybe for the future connecting with Seminole County as well. Well, this is critical. This is a project for the residents of Volusia County, not tourists. And if we can have some support on the ECHO initiative, particularly on the November ballot, we could do even more of these kind of projects throughout the county. We need to bring it not only in West Volusia, hooking the springs together, but also to bring it over to East Volusia as well. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of years to working on the trails projects.
The first leg of the countywide Trails Master Plan stretches from a trailhead at DeBary Hall along Mansion Boulevard and Dirksen Drive to Gemini Springs, a length of 1.3 miles. The $1.3 million cost of construction and land acquisition has been funded by Florida Department of Transportation Enhancement Funds and the Department of Environmental Protection Office of Greenways and Trails. Suzanne Walker, Assistant Director of Florida's Greenways and Trails in Tallahassee, said she's hoping to see a statewide network of trails.
There are lots of different ways to do that, but one of the most important is for local communities to start building their own trails. Then we try to get the different communities to work together and the next door neighbor counties to work together so that it all fits together into an overall statewide system that can hopefully one day get people from one end of Florida to the other.
Phase 2 of Volusia County's plan will include acquisition of proposed lands adjacent to DeBary Hall and within the vicinity of U.S. Highway 1792 and Benson Junction Road. In a move to reduce expenses and increase security, Volusia County's Corrections Services is moving forward with a plan to make most inmate visits via video. The first step in this plan, the construction of a video visitation building, has been approved by the County Council. Currently, families and friends of inmates in the county jail have face-to-face contact during visitation hours. However, this poses additional security risks. Assistant Director of Corrections Cindy Clifford said the video visitation would allow inmate visits to be conducted electronically with the visitors being in a separate building.
The purpose of video visitation is to enhance the security of your institution because it eliminates the contact between the public and the inmates, and it stops them from passing contraband during visitation. We've been looking at it for over 4 years, and there's most of the major counties in Florida have gone to it already. Pinellas has it, Brevard has it, St. Lucie has it, just to name a few. Most agencies do go to it because of the fact of drugs coming in or weapons coming in, and that's the very reason that we're looking at it, of course, is to prevent those things from getting inside our institution. And it happens. Sometimes I think it happens daily when I'm reviewing the reports. A visitor will come and they'll have maybe some kind of drugs, pills or narcotics or marijuana, or nowadays, since we're a non-smoking institution, even tobacco secreted in a balloon. And what they'll do, because that will go right through the metal detector, that's not a problem. So then when they get into visitation, they will put it in their hand, and then when they go to hold hands with their friend or their loved one that they've come to visit, they pass it. And then that person usually swallows it and then retrieves it at a later time. So in order to stop that, we used to let the inmates kiss hello and goodbye to their loved ones. Now we don't allow that anymore. The only contact they are allowed is holding hands above the table. And once you eliminate that, you've pretty well eliminated any contact in a contact visit anyhow. They also use, unfortunately, children, babies. They'll secret it on the baby somewhere, and then we used to allow them to hold their children. We can't allow that because that's another way that the contraband was getting in. And when you know this, you've got to find ways to try to stop the breach of your perimeter, because drugs can get in, weapons can get in, then you go to people dealing the drugs inside, then you go to all sorts of problems inside. So that's one of the reasons that we're really looking to enhance our security.
The County Council approved the expenditure of $146,000 to construct the video visitation building. The video equipment will be purchased separately.
Daytona Beach International Airport. Depart smart. Fly Daytona first.
When hurricanes start to brew out in the Atlantic at this time of the year, people on the coast start to think of ways to protect themselves and their home. Hurricanes and other threatening storms can be deadly to people who are unprepared. One local construction company is building safety right into new homes by giving occupants a secure place to ride out the storm.
And what this actually does is a concrete cocoon or a concrete vault that provides complete safety if one of these tornadoes do hit. Now what we have here is a concrete foundation with a concrete block on top of that, steel reinforcing rods coming out of the foundation, up the walls at no more than 2-foot intervals, up and across the ceiling, and everything is poured solid with concrete. So we really have a concrete vault, which is a bank vault, is built with a steel frame and a steel door, double bolted to provide the security. We also have an air conditioning vent. And this is the place that you can go to for your 15 minutes or half hour during the NOAA weather warnings, where you'll be absolutely safe. Even if the whole roof blows off and the rest of the house blows away, the family will still be safe in this room.
The design for this cocoon or safe room was developed and tested at Texas A&M University. The reinforced solid concrete structure and steel door can withstand a Category 5 hurricane with winds up to 300 miles per hour. The safe room is usually built as a closet in the master bedroom. As far as the Johnson Group is concerned, this is standard equipment that adds $5,000 to $6,000 to the price of a new home. In addition to the safety factor, the builder says it could result in a 15 to 25% reduction in insurance premiums. Weather radios can warn owners of manufactured homes of impending danger, but up until recently, there was little protection to be found inside the home. A West Volusia County inventor has created a safe room that can be installed in these homes after they've been built. It can provide peace of mind and a safe haven for residents.
And this beats laying in a bathtub.
Parsons' safe room looks like a table, but it's actually a small room built underground. A hole is cut in the concrete under the porch and a fiberglass liner is installed. The tabletop is made of 2 layers of 3/4-inch plywood that is secured by 10 metal straps anchored into the concrete. Parsons says the room can withstand a combined force of more than 28 tons.
Nothing can hit these 4 walls. It's below ground. So, I mean, you don't have to test something that's below ground. Nature's tested that since day one.
Although it was originally designed for a manufactured home, this safe room can be installed in any existing structure that has a concrete floor. Finished and installed, this room will run a little over $3,200. Safe rooms like this are designed to protect people from life-threatening winds. Now, when it comes to protecting a structure like a home or a business, there are several methods out there on the market. Roll-down Shutters are a popular form of protection for windows. They're available in electric or manual form and are installed above the window on the outside. Now, for larger openings, accordion shutters do the trick to protect from winds up to 270 miles per hour. When not in use, they fold at the side of the window but close quickly to protect the structure when needed.
This is another very strong form of protection. The downside with this is you put it up yourself. We put up the tracks and cut the storm panel to fit your window, and then these are out of there and they stack together and you store them in your garage. And then when a storm's coming, you just slide them into the track, and then there's some wing nuts here that will attach them to the track, and it's very strong. In this case, we put a Lexan panel in here, and what that does is allow light to come in so that in case of a power outage, you're not totally in the dark. You have some light coming in and you can see what's going on outside.
Less expensive forms of protection include a plastic covering for windows that replaces old-fashioned plywood. Also, the 3M company has created a window film much like standard window tint, but this one's a lot stronger. It has been tested to withstand wind and flying debris at speeds up to 120 miles per hour.
If an object comes flying at it and does come through, it will only tear as far as that object. It'll tear around that object, or if the object comes all the way through, there'll be an opening. But it won't allow the glass to shatter around it, and it will usually protect you against wind and rain coming in.
If you'd like more information on these products, check out Volusia County's Disaster Preparedness Guide. There's also information on evacuation routes, preparing a disaster supply kit, and other disaster-related information. Now, the guides are available at county libraries and from Volusia County Emergency Management. The number is area code 904-254-1500. That's 254-1500. For Volusia Magazine, I'm Holly Smith.
Museum and Gardens is the home of many beautiful trees, flowers, and other scenic pleasures. There are trails to explore with benches along the way to relax in the shade. Not only is this a visual paradise, but also a preserve for many birds, turtles, and other living creatures that reside here. The beauty of this site has become very popular for occasions including weddings, portraits, and other family gatherings. You will find an elegance of nature that you may not expect to see so close to home. Once you've experienced this outdoor pleasure, the stone trails will lead you to a brand new gallery of art you won't want to miss. This museum is a revolving exhibit. The one you see here is called People, Places, and Things. The Orman Memorial Art Museum and Garden also offers classes for children and adults. Stop in to find out the current schedule at 78 East Granada Boulevard in Orman Beach. The Orman Memorial Art Museum and Gardens.
It's time now for Dave Byron to bring us his in-depth interview concerning the important role of EVAC in emergency medical services. This nonprofit ambulance company provides service countywide, but costs are increasing. Let's join Volusia County's Community Information Director, Dave Byron, and learn more about it.
Thanks, Donna, and good evening, everyone. EVAC ambulances respond to 163 calls every day in Volusia County, and these ambulances are on scene in 6.5 minutes. A nonprofit corporation, EVAC has been Volusia's countywide ambulance provider since 1982. Working in tandem with city and county fire departments, Volusia's emergency response system has been one that other areas have copied. Our guest today is EVAC Ambulance Executive Director Michael Mellon. Mike, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you, Dave. It is a pleasure to be here.
You know, Mike, ambulance service is certainly a critical public service that all good communities provide, and I guess the public just assumes that when they call 911, that ambulance better be there. You have a pretty big responsibility. Perhaps, if you will, give us kind of a thumbnail sketch of EVAC Ambulance.
Well, very briefly, EVAC is a countywide service that is entirely funded through user fees. We operate 20 ambulances during our normal peak times, and then we scale back under a system status management plan so that when people are, say, asleep, we know that we need less ambulances. That helps hold costs down. And then our special event activities, we staff more and more ambulances.
And I believe, Mike, looking through your very fine annual report, that your average response rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of 6.5 minutes countywide.
Countywide for emergencies, life-threatening type calls, we're averaging about 6.5 minutes countywide.
And of course, I would assume that in an urban area, like if you just looked at your response rate within Daytona Beach, for example, it must be even lower than that.
In some instances, yes, sir, it is. We try to look in the urban areas, which is the vast majority of our responses, and if we can keep a 5, 6, 7 minute average response, but then again stay within our compliance requirements of our contract, then we're very comfortable with that.
We have, I think, what's described as an emergency response system in Volusia County that's kind of a two-tiered system. Perhaps you can explain how that works and what that means.
The two-tier system is basically a very efficient but redundant system, in that fire rescue, whether they be first responders, basic life support providers, or advanced life support, which the vast majority of our cities, our community is, they get the call first, and they respond to begin their immediate aid. Under the American medical guidelines, 4 minutes for BLS intervention, 8 minutes for ALS intervention.
Okay.
So the two-tier allows that. And then, in theory, the ambulance transporter would come in after that. But since our system is fairly finely tuned, we almost have a simultaneous response. The 911 call comes into a municipality. They're dispatching their fire rescue. At the same time, they're transferring the call to ECS, which is a corporation we contract with to provide us our communications.
Okay.
And then they're dispatching ambulances. So it's within a minute or two of each other that both these units are simultaneoand en route.
So I guess if you're the patient, that's good news, because you're getting a lot of help in a short period of time.
Yes.
But EVAC does the transport.
EVAC does the transport. And that's important to note, because in the two-tier system, in Volusia County, the average fire rescue unit is wrapped up. That resource is involved in that call for about 16 minutes, whereas the ambulance is involved in that call for about an hour and 5 minutes. So for resource utilization, you're freeing up those first responder emergency vehicles.
They go back to the station then.
Exactly, to be available for more responses.
And as I understand it, Mike, there's been a lot of conversation about this, but as I understand it, the county council has the statutory responsibility, counties in general, to provide ambulance service in their various counties. Is that right?
That is correct. Under Florida law, the county government is the statutory requirement to provide emergency medical services.
And then they do, I guess, the certificate of need
process. The certificate of need is their issuing authority.
Right.
And depending on what the county government wants to do, they can have municipality, fire services do it.
Sure.
Third services do it. In the case of EVAC, a not-for-profit corporation, which is wholly owned by the citizens of our county, provides that service.
And, I guess historically, since EVAC came on the scene, I guess in 1982, the county council has chosen to have what I guess is described as a county-wide single-source transport program.
Yes, sir. I believe that our predecessors on the council were very wise in a decision, because back in 1981, when EVAC wasn't created, the one fire service provided ALS, but most of our municipalities and most of our county system was volunteer or first responder.
Yeah.
So the county created an organization that provided that ALS level of service countywide.
And, and interesting, I remember those days, which doesn't mean I'm getting any older, but I remember the days when Beacon Ambulance provided service under contract to the county. And I think I'm correct in saying that the taxpayers at one point were on the hook for what was approaching $1 million subsidy. Today, that's not the case at all.
Beacon was the private for-profit ambulance company that used to provide services. The county ultimately bought those out, and that became the impetus of EVAC.
Right.
And yes, in the early days of EVAC, up until really the early 90s, EVAC ambulance was using about $800 to $1 million of ad valorem taxpayer money every year. We have just entered into our fourth year, or entering into our fourth year of no tax support.
You know, Mike, I guess you've gone, I guess what that says is you've gone from taxpayer help to the user's pay. And recently there was, I guess, a rate increase for, I guess, to keep up with your costs and so forth. Tell us about the rate increase and what justified that.
We requested from the county council a rate increase of approximately, our ALS rate, I believe, was 17%, which we had not had a rate increase in 5 years. Our BLS rate was increased 15%. We hadn't had one of those in 3 years. And really, as most everybody knows, you can look at costs. Rising health care costs, workers' compensation costs, fuel for your automobile, not only at the national level, but here at the county.
Sure.
And just although low inflation in general.
Sure.
So over a 5-year period, inflation pushed costs up about 20%, and we're still below that in the indexes with this latest rate increase. More importantly, Dave, is we're still in the middle category of the surrounding community for governments that are providing this service. Our rates are very, very competitive, and then when you compare us to private companies, we are very low compared to them.
Well, so in other words, then the rate increase was necessary just to keep up with general operating cost increases, and even with the increase, you're well in the middle of the pack when it comes to typical rates.
Exactly, and any revenues over our expenses, we reinvest in this company. So it's not like you're shipping dollars to stockholders or anything.
Sure.
The stockholders are us, the citizen.
And I would assume, last week we were talking to the school system folks, and they have to provide more classroom space every year because our population is increasing. I would assume that would translate into more calls for evac service.
Surely. When evac was first created in '81, there were 9 ambulances. Now there's 20 frontline units. There was like 60 people. There's 180 full-time employees and then 60 to 70 part-time employees. We've gone from doing 18,000 responses a year to just shy of 60,000.
Wow.
37,000 transports last year.
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of those don't generate a transport, but they do generate a service call or a...
Service call, yes, sir.
Mike, we were talking about the interface between evac and the city fire units and so forth, and it's probably important to note that even though, there are different agencies involved, there is one set up in the county to make sure that protocols and training and so forth are standardized so the patient can be assured that no matter what first responder is there, that agency has good training and there's a good set of guidelines to work, between evac and the city protocols, I guess you call them.
Dave, that's a very, very valid and strong point. Volusia County, about 15 years ago, created and funded a single medical director that all agencies had the choice of using at no cost to them. The county's ad valorem general fund covers that. But that has given a solid interlocking mechanism that dictates how the paramedics and EMTs in any agency operate, so that no matter who you get, that level of training is the same, their skill levels, they're following the same medical guidelines, and it's overseen, no matter where you are in the county, by one medical doctor. So it's a very, very solid addition to an EMS system.
Mike, before we totally run out of time, I want to touch on the fact that last Bike Week, for example, we had a record number of serious injuries and fatalities. Bike Week is becoming a very, very large event. And, we are a special event community in Volusia County. Bike Week is a high-profile event. What impact does that have, or how does that influence your service? It must be kind of a challenge out there.
Well, it is. The biggest impact Bike Week or other special events is traffic gridlock.
It's hard to move if you...
Yeah, and that takes an amazing cooperation between the communities to be able to move emergency vehicles in general.
Sure.
And of course, evac, we staff about 20% higher in ambulances. We put, I think last year we had 25 ambulances out during the peak hours. So there is a significant impact not only to evac, but to fire rescue in general during those special events.
You know, it's going to be interesting to see, Mike, and this is kind of a sidelight to what we're talking about. It's going to be interesting to see what that no helmet law has for an impact in Volusia County. It's going to be interesting to see that.
It will be, in my opinion, an eye-opener as it relates to the dollars that are going to be spent in the care. Because as one of the legislators said, the $10,000 required life insurance won't even get you through the emergency room.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, in previous programs here, we've had the the Trauma Center director at Halifax on this program, and she said outright, this is a bad, bad thing for our community, this no helmet law, because most of the serious injuries that come in as a result of bike accidents are head traumas.
Yes. I've sat in seminars, closed head injuries, average cost $300,000.
Unbelievable.
So.
Final question, Mike. We live in a high-tech world, and obviously that extends to the provision of ambulance service. I know you guys are doing some really neat things with technology. Give us a quick tour of what you're doing.
Very quickly, we have just recently installed global positioning in all our ambulances so that our dispatch center, we can see where our ambulances are. All our ambulances are now computerized. They see what information our personnel glean on the telephones or put into their computers in their vehicles.
Interesting.
And then we're moving that technology into fire trucks that dispatch through this corporation.
Mike, do you communicate via computer with the trauma center, or are we moving toward that direction?
That's our next phase. Right. Ultimately, we will have computers that in the trauma center and in all emergency rooms in Volusia County, that they will be able to see what our crews are seeing and doing.
One would assume, as a layperson, that's going to be a very, very big advantage to the doctors and the patients.
There will be, I think it will, especially if we tie it into medical records down in the future.
Sure. Well, Mike, we're out of time today. Fascinating subject, and certainly evac ambulance service is a critical service in Volusia County. Sounds like things are going pretty good, and I want to thank you very much for taking the time to be with us.
It's my pleasure, and I hope you invite me back.
Thanks, sir. Our guest has been Mike Mellon. He's the evac executive director.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you for watching Volusia Magazine. If you have any questions regarding our program, please give us a call at one of the numbers you see on your screen. And don't forget to listen to Volusia Today, Volusia County Government's public information radio program. Volusia Today airs every Tuesday and Sunday mornings on the local radio stations you see listed here. For Volusia Magazine, I'm Donna DeMarsh. Have a great evening.